Hello, and welcome to Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Recently on this channel, we were talking about the Zodiac killer suspect Earl Van Best, and we did a 9-part book discussion on The Most Dangerous Animal of All, which profiles him as a Zodiac killer suspect. Some of the things that were mentioned in that book were surrounding the state of mind in San Francisco in 1968 and 69, which is heavily connected to the Zodiac killer, but other people might think of some things like the Summer of Love and Flower Power, things of that nature. And one thing that was mentioned in the book was that Earl Van Best was someone who was not interested in any of that flower power, peace and love. But over time, he took a liking to the band Jefferson Airplane, particularly their songs White Rabbit and Somebody to Love. He even bought the album, and that was something that was a major transition for him. So, after reading that in the book, I started just listening to Jefferson Airplane again. I've heard their songs in the past, and just got back into that, and it only took a matter of time before I got into reading about some of the criminal activities surrounding their lead singer, Grace Slick. And criminal activities, the crimes of Grace Slick, that's a little bit of a stretch, really, to say even. Mostly you could say that she was arrested for a variety of incidents, as well as even being part of another set of variety of instances, of another variety of events that are just a little bit more questionable. I'd say, though, one of the most, I don't really know what you would say. Part of me just wants to say humorous, even though I probably shouldn't talk about drugging another person as humorous, but she tried to drug Richard Nixon, or she was involved with a plot associated to slip LSD into Richard Nixon's drink along with another individual named Abby Hoffman. And part of me wants to laugh, but then part of me is just like, well, I suppose I should acknowledge Nixon's humanity. It's still just, if you can't think of Richard Nixon tripping out on LSD as somewhat funny, I don't know. Jumping over to an article from WETA, we're going to have a look at that right here. By the way, the first line that they have written here in this article is, President Nixon was not particularly popular in counterculture circles. And I'm just like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But it goes on to say, while he was in the White House, Richard Nixon was public enemy number one with people who took part in the counterculture movement. There was a large segment of the population who rejected what were considered traditional American values when Nixon took office in 1969. However, his escalation of the war in Vietnam, his anti-drug stance, and his advocacy for conservative values did not sit well with many of the nation's youth. And we've done a couple of blows about Richard Nixon in the past. There also are some other more scam artist-style elements that are involved with Richard Nixon. I think that that's being a little bit generous here, that introduction. Grace Slick, lead singer of San Francisco-based rock group Jefferson Airplane, decided to find out. In April 1970, Slick received an invitation to attend a party at the White House that was being thrown by the president's daughter, Tricia Nixon. It turned out that Slick and Tricia were both alumni of Finch College, an all-girls school located in upstate New York. Tricia was a recent graduate, and Slick, who attended under her maiden name, Grace Wing, attended in 1957 to the 58 year. When they say her maiden name, I think I mean that was actually Slick was the name of her stepfather, and she took on that name when her mother married her stepfather. I think. I'm not really an alumni because I didn't graduate, Grace Slick told journalist Phyllis Pollock. I got an invitation in the mail. Grace Wing, we cordially invite you to a tea with Tricia Nixon at the White House. And I thought, oh yeah? I think Tricky Dick needs a little acid. And like when I'm reading this stuff, I'm just like, heh. That's all I can say. Heh. Slick invited Abby Hoffman as her date to the event. Hoffman was one of the most notorious members of the counterculture. He had recently been on trial for inciting unrest at the 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago, advocated dumping LSD into the Washington, D.C. water supply, and engaged in numerous anti-government demonstrations and pranks meant to draw himself to the causes. And It's like you really got to see though. Just reading that off, that also sounds like somebody else is kind of in it for themselves, and I don't mean Grace Slick. I mean this other guy, Abby Hoffman. And just now, a quick word from our sponsors. Yes, that's right. Channel like this, we have sponsors. Gum Proxibrush Go-Between Cleaners are triangular-shaped bristles that remove up to 25% more plaque compared to round bristles. Antibacterial bristles keep brushes cleaner between uses. Coated wire for added comfort, bendable neck makes cleaning back teeth easy, and a flexible handle for better comfort and control when cleaning hard-to-reach places. Gum Proxibrush Go-Between Cleaners are available at your local drugstore, megastore, and supermarket, and anywhere dental products are sold. Check them out. Now, when we're talking about Grace Slick, though, I mean, she has so much more, though, than just attempting to drop LSD into Richard Nixon's drink. What really happened with that one is there was an all-girls event, but Abby Hoffman was a guy, so they were denied entry into the White House, or they got very nervous about it. Abby Hoffman wasn't allowed in the building because it was an all-girls event, so in short, a part of me wants to say they chickened out. The other part of me just said that they backed away from it. But that could have been one of the more entertaining moments of Richard Nixon's presidency, even though, I mean, when I said we have to acknowledge his humanity, the reason why we do not do those things to people is someone can die from that rather easily. I mean, like, I know that sounds like maybe it's kind of going without saying, but when it comes to the illegal activity surrounding somebody such as Grace Slick, she had a variety of arrests. One time she was even arrested for sitting in the woods, drinking wine, and reading a book of poetry. And when a police officer approached her, she gave a sarcastic response, and then she was arrested for that. And she has been arrested multiple times for what she called talking under the influence. Now, we're going to go over to an article here from the Associated Press in 1994, because I think this deals with a more substantial arrest that comes to us from Grace Slick. Grace Slick arrested on felony assault charges March 5th, 1994, Tiburon, California. Former Jefferson Starship lead singer Grace Slick. Oh yeah, by the way, Starship and Jefferson Starship are apparently two different bands. I did not know that until going through some of this stuff. Yeah, okay. Built this city on rock and roll, huh? Former Jefferson Starship lead singer Grace Slick was arrested Sunday for allegedly aiming a gun at a police officer who had come into her house and ordered the police officers to leave. Officers from the Tiburon Police Department went to the singer's home after receiving a call at 3:30 a.m. from an intoxicated man who said a drunken woman was firing a shotgun in the house. That's a great sentence, by the way. An intoxicated man said that a drunken woman was firing a shotgun in the house. When officers arrived, 58-year-old Ira Lee came to the door yelling, "Kill me, kill me, kill me," to the police officers. The officers subdued him. Kinda wish I could have been at that party, to be honest. Slick then came to the door carrying a shotgun, pointed it at the officers, and yelled at them to leave her property. Slick refused to drop the shotgun when the officers ordered her to do so, the police said. An officer wrestled the gun away from her, and her attention was diverted. The shotgun was unloaded, but officers found live and spent shotgun shells in the yard. Marin County jail officials said Slick, age 54, whose real name is Grace Johnson, was charged with felony assault and felony brandishing a weapon at a policeman. She posted $7,000 bail and was taken to Marin General Hospital for evaluation. Tiburon is 6 miles north of San Francisco. So, as you see there, I mean, a lot of these things can happen. And I know that when we're talking about the crimes of somebody who was involved, with some of these things here, it's very easy to mention things like drug use. A lot of people don't even think drug use is a crime, but Grace Slick has talked about this extensively, even back in the 1970s, when I think she had an interview in 1974, and they were talking just very clearly about the effects of psychedelics and like what those seem to do on the person. I mean, in Recently, though, she did an interview with this one channel that was called the Institute for Religious Tolerance, Peace, and Justice. I was like really shocked, and I hope I got the name of that channel right. Yes, because it's a very lengthy one. Yeah, the Institute for Religious Tolerance, Peace, and Justice. It's a big name, and she has the segments are here on YouTube where they're talking about how there are a variety of ways that people can experience drugs. And one of the things that Grace Slick recommends is with the tripping of LSD, acid, that they would normally have one person around who was sober just to kind of keep the eye on everyone and to see what was going on. Because it's more like LSD was something that was more about bringing people out of getting people to face their demons and such. And another thing that I was very surprised that she said in this interview with the Institute for Religious Peace, Tolerance, Peace, and Justice is that she recommended doing acid with a psychologist or a psychiatrist so they could monitor you. And, she's not being silly, being very serious about that, something that is just recommended. I'm like, I don't know if that's up my alley, but no, I completely understand where she's coming from with something like that. And I just think that I'm not really talking about that so much in terms of criminal behavior. That's more just something that I think she has contributed in somewhat of an insightful way. Flourish Premium Potting Products. When you bring Flourish Premium Potting Soil home, you are ready for almost any planting project, from your front porch to your kitchen window. Just decide what you want to grow, and Flourish Premium Potting Soil will help you succeed. The quality ingredients that go into our True Mix have been carefully chosen and blended to give your plants a good start and a long life. Flourish Premium Potting Soil is available at your local garden section at any place where garden products are sold. So, when we're listening to somebody who has been through the rock star movements of the 1960s and 70s, one of the questions that comes up is, why do so many people turn to drugs? And Grace Slick's response to this was very simple, that it's about money. Rock stars do this because they have money. And I'm not 100% sure of that, because on the one hand, I think there might be a certain thing about energy, because on the one hand, she'll say something like the musicians turn to drugs because of the money, but at the same time, we always hear things from other rock stars that they were doing cocaine mostly for the energy. The people that I know who have done cocaine, they do it for the energy. And I don't think that that's the most controversial statement out there. It gives them just like a very big high to perform the show, and then they go through the crash. Although Grace Slick did say once they mixed up the LSD and the cocaine, and then that just turned into something that didn't turn out too well. Because if I recall what she said, and this isn't in the interview from the Institute, she said that she just really liked the sound of the bass player, so she just began listening to him while she was supposed to be performing on stage, and they had thousands of people all around, but she's just listening to the bass player go on and not performing herself. Anyway, I don't think that's the most evil thing in the world. And once again, I really wanted to highlight that when we're talking about like things like drug use, I don't really want that to be on the same level with perhaps some other crimes like brandishing a shotgun. It's more like these are some things that we can talk about because we want to learn some things. And by the way, we're just going to finish off with a little bit of
Say you don't know me, I recognize my face. Say you don't care who goes to that kind of place. Knee deep in the hoopla, sinking in your fight. Too many
after Jefferson Airplane broke up, the band Starship formed, and like I said, I thought Jefferson Starship and Starship were the same band, but apparently they are not. That's Starship. We built this city, and I just wanted to say that this is often rated as one of the worst songs ever, and some people in the comments section below this one are even talking about how this is the one of the worst songs of all time. I don't necessarily. I wouldn't put it in that. I mean, have you heard the New Kids on the Block? I mean, they definitely had. Anyway, Starship. We built this city on rock and roll. I wouldn't. I would be curious what other people would say about that, but that's just kind of irrelevant and beside the point. If we actually want to give Grace Slick a little bit more justice, I highly recommend that some people check out some of the animations that people have done for something like White Rabbit with some of the animations that go on around it.
One pill makes you larger, and one pill makes you small, and the ones that mother gives you don't do anything at all. Go ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall. And if you go chasing rabbits, and you know you're going to fall, tell him a hookah, smoking caterpillar has given you a call. Poor Alice, when she was just small. When the men on the chessboard get up and tell you where to go, and you just had some kind of mushroom, and your mind is moving on. Go ask Alice, I think you'll know. Logic and proportion have fallen sloppy dead, and the white knight is falling backwards, and the red queen's on ahead. Remember, the dog of
So much power behind that voice. And the first time that I saw Jefferson Airplane on the television, it sounds a bit weird, but they had the whole band playing, right? But the thing that stood out to me was just Grace Slick's captivating eyes, just that bold stare, not even the sound, The first song that I saw them perform was actually Somebody to Love. We were just playing White Rabbit right there. And, it's like you got the whole rock band going, and then you're just singing, huh. Those are some magical eyes she has. Anyway, thank you for listening to our discussion about Grace Slick and some of the illegal activities that she was surrounded in. And also, we just threw in a few songs there at the end just to kind of, if you're going to talk about musicians, you might as well play a little bit of their music. And I'd be quite curious what you guys think about that song from Starship, which is apparently not Jefferson Starship. Or maybe they are the same thing and I'm just completely out of it. Different generation, let's just say that much. Anyway, I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments section below. If you like this upload, you can hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you're welcome to do so. But most importantly, drop some comments below. I want to hear from you. Until next time.